friends, seekers, fellow travelers on this intricate path of life. Before we delve into this matter of loss and the elusive peace we so desperately seek, let us pause, shall we? Let us first attempt to gather ourselves to approach this exploration not as fragmented beings, each with our own isolated grief or fear, but as a collective, interconnected whole. Can we, just for this moment, endeavor to meet this topic from a state of mind that is, dare I say, holistic? A state that recognizes the profound interconnectedness of all things, that sees the tapestry of human existence with all its threads of joy and sorrow, gain and loss, interwoven into a single unbroken cloth. For is it not true that our problems, our individual heartaches, are never truly isolated? They are echoes of a larger human condition, ripples in the vast ocean of experience that touches us all. To address loss, we must therefore address the underlying currents that give rise to it, our attachments, our fears, our very perception of reality itself. Most of us are fragmented. We are beings fractured by the demands and expectations of modern life. We compartmentalize ourselves into neat little boxes: business self, family self, religious self, sexual self, and so on. We present different faces to the world, each carefully crafted to meet the demands of a particular situation. The truth is, we are divided. We are contradictory. We are, to put it simply, not whole. And so we approach loss from this fragmented perspective, attempting to apply logic, reason, or perhaps even spiritual platitudes to a wound that cuts across the very core of our being. We grasp for solutions, for quick fixes, for anything that will alleviate the pain. But true peace, true resilience, cannot be found in such a piecemeal approach. So, I ask you, can we, together, strive for a different perspective? Can we face this topic not from a point of fragmentation, but from a place of total integration, of wholeness? I know. The word holistic has become somewhat of a scientific buzzword, hasn't it? But I use it here not in a technical sense, but in its most fundamental meaning, the recognition that everything is connected, that the part cannot be understood without understanding the whole. Recognizing that we are fragmented, broken, and internally divided, can we still come together in order to discover a different perspective? Can we understand how our brains are conditioned from childhood to solve problems instead of understanding them? Why do we have problems? Political problems, religious problems, personal problems, sexual problems, sexual problems. The list is endless. And in a world as complex and sophisticated as ours, these problems seem to multiply exponentially. In solving one problem, we invariably create several more. Why is this? From the moment we enter school, we are trained to solve problems. A mathematical equation, a grammatical exercise, a historical puzzle. Our brains are conditioned to seek solutions, to analyze, to dissect, to conquer. And this conditioning, while useful in certain contexts, becomes a hindrance when it comes to dealing with the deeper, more existential challenges of life, such as loss. For loss is not a problem to be solved. It is a reality to be faced, a mystery to be embraced. It is a part of the human condition, as inevitable as birth and death themselves. To approach loss as a problem is to misunderstand its very nature. If our brains are always searching for solutions, then what happens to the actual problem itself? When we are constantly looking at the solution instead of the problem, we will never understand it. Can we free ourselves from the solution-oriented brain and instead embrace an understanding-oriented brain? Consider, for example, the problem of war. Throughout human history, we have been engaged in a seemingly endless cycle of violence. We have created institutions, treaties, and organizations in an attempt to end war, yet it persists. Why? Because we have focused on the solutions, on the reorganization of how to kill man better, rather than on the root causes of war itself. We move from the League of Nations to the United Nations, from one arms treaty to another, yet the underlying conditions of nationalism, economic division, and religious intolerance remain. These divisions are the cause of war, as well as many other problems. We are all human beings. We all suffer. We all experience pain, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, and despair. But instead of tackling these fundamental aspects of the human condition, we focus on the external symptoms, on the problems that seem to have causes outside ourselves. So I ask again, can the brain, recognizing its own conditioning, its own inherent limitations, be free of this conditioning and then face problems? Is this possible? Are you willing to do it? To be aware, to be conscious of the fact that our brains are conditioned to solve problems is the first step. Then, can we look at the fact without drawing conclusions or ideas? This is the truth, not an idea of the truth. Our brains are conditioned, and as long as that condition exists, multiplications of problems will go on. Take the example of a troubled marriage. We face constant quarrels and contention. So we get divorced, then choose another person. And we keep on repeating this over and over again. But the problem is not divorce or relationships. The problem is understanding the depth of relationship. This brings us to the heart of the matter, the cultivation of inner resilience through present moment awareness. For it is in the present moment, and only in the present moment, that we can truly encounter reality, unburdened by the weight of the past or the anxieties of the future. Now, what is the true art of living? There is the art of poetry, painting, cooking. But what is the greatest art? What is the art of living? What would be your answer? No conflict. A brain that is in conflict all the time, having problems all the time, must be limited. If one is thinking about oneself, how to meditate, then your very meditation is self-centeredness. Therefore, living with no conflict at all, is this even possible? It means to understand the opposing elements in our lives. Is it possible to live without self-centeredness even for one day? See what happens. It will give you great sense of passion to pursue something profoundly to the very end of things. When loss comes, as it inevitably will, our first impulse is often to resist it, to deny it, to push it away. We cling to the past, to memories, to the way things were. We become entangled in a web of what-ifs and should-haves, replaying events in our minds, searching for a different outcome. But this resistance only serves to amplify the pain. It is like struggling against a powerful current. The more we resist, the more exhausted and overwhelmed we become. True resilience lies not in resisting loss, but in accepting it, in allowing it to be. This does not mean that we must passively resign ourselves to our fate, but rather that we must acknowledge the reality of the present moment without judgment or resistance. To be present with loss is to feel the pain, the grief, the sadness fully and completely. It is to allow the emotions to flow through us without trying to suppress them or control them. It is to recognize that these emotions are a natural and healthy response to loss, and that they will eventually pass like clouds in the sky. And in that moment of acceptance, in that space of stillness, a new kind of strength can arise. A strength that is not based on denial or resistance, but on a deep and unwavering connection to the present moment. A strength that allows us to face the reality of loss with courage, compassion, and even, perhaps, a measure of peace. This is not an easy path. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to confront our own deepest fears. But it is a path that is open to all of us, regardless of our background, our beliefs, or our past experiences. For the present moment is always available, always accessible, waiting for us to turn our attention towards it. So, I invite you, in the face of loss, to turn your attention towards the present moment, to feel the breath in your body, to notice the sensations in your hands and feet, to hear the sounds around you, to simply be without judgment or expectation. In that simple act of being, you will discover a wellspring of inner resilience, a source of strength that will sustain you through the darkest of times. For in the present moment, you are not alone. You are connected to all things, to the vast and timeless ocean of existence. And in that connection, you will find the peace that surpasses all understanding. As we leave this topic, let us discover what is life. You go to the office, sex, have children. But what is the real life? The power, the prestige. That is not life. That is our mishandling of life. So, what is life? What gives life to a blade of grass in the cement? Why are you listening to me? What is the motive behind it? What do you want? What is the desire? Desire is part of sensation. I see a beautiful clock, and thought creates an image of it. Sensation, thought, then desire is born. Is there a brain that is not muddled by the environment, tradition, and society? What is the origin of life? It has no name and no end. The most sacred thing in life is change. Change it today, not tomorrow. If uncertain, find out why and be certain. Unless all that is prepared, you can't enter into the world of creation. So, be conscious and be aware. From the beginning of life, we are always struggling with problems and trying to find the right answer to them. The right answer can only be when we recognize the brain is conditioned. As long as that brain is conditioned to solving problems, we will never find the right answer.